The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice.
Weekly Forecast.
Hey guys, this is a weekly forecast for February 14th through the 18th of 2022. Alright, let's start out with the Eurjpy. This is a weekly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since the last long trade that formed was right here, and last year at this point right here, it was compact short price action that formed, which shows strong short strength. And so in the long term, I'm short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. And moreover, since this weekly bias is stating that price will reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high, in the short term, I'm also short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, we'll stay on this weekly chart. For a full explanation of what's been happening to price in this entire area, please refer to the Forex Recap series. Okay, but the most recent setup I'm looking at is since this weekly bias is short and price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high right here. I was waiting for a pullback to this stop loss level as much as possible so I could take a short entry. And if you recall 2 weeks ago, I took one short entry at 131.67, roughly around here. And then moreover last week in my midweek analysis, I was mentioning I took another short entry at 131.70, roughly around here. And moreover, this Friday, I took one more short entry at the 132 levels right here. Again, with all these short trades having the same risk parameters, with the stop loss at this pivot high and its main target being down here. Alright, so let me go ahead and explain to you why I took this last short entry at the 132 level this week. Alright, so let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Alright, so on this 1 hour chart, if you recall, as price came up to these levels right here, I took a short entry at 131.67 in this area. Now I took this short entry, although that there was short-term long strength on the 15-minute chart in this area and moreover on the 1 hour chart in this area, simply due to the NFP release being released that day and price having the possibility to fall straight down without giving me an opportunity for entry. And so we got a slight move up after that, up to these levels. And then as price came down to this level right here, if you watch my midweek analysis, you'll know that I took another short entry at the 131.70 levels, roughly in these areas, due to price showing extreme long strength in this area, due first of all this 1 hour trendline breakout and immediate break back in, and then moreover a 1 minute fake double bottom that actually went as target height, which both show short-term long strength. However, as I explained, price still came back down to hit the pivot low, where those two long strength formations forms roughly in this area, because when this price point was touched, what that told me was that although there was strong long strength, the short strength was able to override that long strength and reach its pivot low. Okay, so after a small pullback, I took one more short entry. Now moreover, after that entry, as price came down, price started to recover all the way up to these levels. And again, on the midweek analysis, I was mentioning this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. I was saying if there is short-term long strength confirmed here, I'm going to need extreme long strength confirmation. Now I will not be avoiding both those short trades simply based on a breakout and immediate break back in. Alright, but still at this point right here, there was confirmation of slight short-term long strength. And then as price came all the way up to these levels right here, there were no signs of short-term extreme long strength. Again, like I mentioned in the midweek analysis, I would only abort these two short trades if there is extreme long strength. And so I kept both those short positions in, and as price came back down to these levels, on Friday I took another short entry roughly at these 132 levels right here. Now let me go in and explain why I took this short entry here also. So let's go over to the 5-minute chart. Okay, so on this 5-minute chart, as price came down to these levels right here, there was another sign on this 5-minute chart of extreme short-term short strength. So basically what happened is as follows. So first of all, I'll try drawing this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now as you can see, there was a break out of it and an immediate break back in. Now this shows short-term short strength, right? However, 2 candles later, price came right back up to touch that pivot high where that breakout occurred, right at this point right here. Now at this point, that means that the short-term short strength was overridden by stronger long strength, right? However, after that, price came right back down. Price did not enforce that long strength and came right back down to the correlating pivot low. And so at this point right here, that shows me that there was short strength and then long strength overrided it. However, there was even more short-term short strength to even override that strong long strength. Okay, so at this point, when this correlating pivot low was touched, I took another short entry on this pullback right here at roughly the 132 levels. Okay, and there's one more thing I do want to mention back on the 1 hour chart. So let's go back there. Okay, so again on this 1 hour chart, initially I took 2 short entries, one at 131.67 and another one at 131.70, roughly in these levels. Now the reason I was mentioning I was only willing to abort these short trades if there's extreme long strength and not simply a breakout and break back in showing normal short-term long strength, is because if this weekly bias to begin with was actually wrong and the bias was actually long, at this point right here where there was extreme long strength, price should have used this opportunity to go straight up to that weekly stop loss level at 133.67. However, as you can see, although there was extreme long strength, short strength was able to override it. So even if price pulled all the way back to these levels right here, I was still okay with holding these 2 short positions as long as there was no extreme long strength forming on the way up. Okay, so for the time being, I'm still holding those 3 short positions with the risk parameters mentioned earlier. But again, I'll always be confirming the lower time frames to see if there's an extreme long strength that's forming. And as long as that extreme long strength does not form, I will not abort any of these short positions. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the pound dollar. Okay, and if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of weekly biases and strong and weak trades, please watch my price action trading course, where that course is designed to provide you the necessary information so you can understand these forecasts. Okay, this is a weekly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this horizontal trend line right here just became legitimate with its 3 touches with 1, 2, and 3 right here, and since price has a tendency to want to test strong levels in the long term, I am long biased right back up to this horizontal trend line. However, on the weekly chart, since there was a strong long trade that formed and a weak short trade that formed, in the short term, I am long biased right back up to this pivot high right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. For a full explanation of what's been happening in the price in this entire area right here, please refer to the Forex Recap series. Alright, but the current setup I'm looking at is that there was a strong long trade that formed right here, and then a weak short trade formed right here. And so the weekly bias is long, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. And so I've been waiting for a pullback down roughly to 1.3300 levels and beyond for a long entry. Now we almost got to that level about 2 weeks ago at this area right here, but then we got that pullback. So let me go ahead and explain to you what's happening on the lower time frames to see if we get that pullback to 1.3300. So let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so on this 1 hour chart, if you recall, as price fell down to these levels down here, there was consistently short-term short strength, and that long entry level was about 60 pips below this level. However, recall we started getting a basing out of short-term short strength through 1 hour trendline breakouts and no immediate breaks back in, and price began to make its ascent all the way up to these levels right here. However, if you recall, I was mentioning that although price was rising, there were no signs of extreme short-term long strength, so we can expect a pullback. And so price started pulling back in these areas right here. Now some interesting things are happening this week, especially in this area right here. So let me just go ahead and zoom in first. Okay, so again, as price pulled back in these areas, first of all, try drawing this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now at this point, there was actually a breakout and an immediate break back in, which signifies short-term long strength, right? However, as you can see, price came right back down to hit the correlating pivot low right here, which signals that short-term short strength was able to override this short-term long strength. And so price fell quite aggressively in these areas right here. And then moreover, there was further confirmation of short strength through this trend line breakout from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. As you can see, there was a breakout and immediate break back in, further confirming short-term short strength. However, price was able to pull all the way back to these levels right here, where that initial short-term short strength was confirmed at this pivot high right here. So this setup was very similar to the euro yen, where there was actually short-term short strength, but price was still able to come right back up to prior levels, showing that there's a lot of buyers in terms of supply and demand. Okay, and then as price ranged and came right back down to these levels, there was actually a 1 minute legitimate double bottom that formed like so. Now legitimate double bottom shows short-term long strength, right? However, immediately that second bottom stop loss was hit, and then price began to give its ascent right here. And so at this point, the way I saw this setup was that there was short-term short strength at 2 points on this 1 hour chart, and that's right here, and that's another one right here. So although price did give a wild move all the way up to these levels, these two signals of extreme short-term short strength were pointing price down eventually. And this spike up is more or less a sporadic supply and demand move. And so one thing to keep in mind is that what's important in terms of reading price is that it's not the direction of price movement. It's more or less how price moves from point A to point B is what defines the true strength of any asset. And in this case, although price did make a move up at these 2 points right here, there were extreme signs of short-term short strength, showing that although price may go up for a time being, it will not be sustained and price will come right back down. So from this point forward, I'd still want that pullback right back down to the 1.3300 levels. So let me show you the levels I'll be looking for to confirm that. Let's go over to the 4 hour chart. Okay, so on this 4 hour chart, try drawing this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. As you can see at this point right here, there was a breakout and immediate break back in, showing short-term long strength. Now, in order to get some extreme short strength right down to the 1.3300 levels, what I'm looking for is for price to come right back down to reach this pivot low where that short-term long strength formed. For that will show to me that although there was short-term long strength, the short strength was able to override that long strength. And again, that's if price reaches this pivot low right here. Okay, so for the time being, that's the levels I'll be watching for that entry for that weekly bias long. All right, so that's it for the weekly forecast. I hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for watching. Okay, bye.